where she walks, she'll be captivating under me. Don't look in her eyes, you might fall and find the love of your life. About disasters, fires, floods, and killer bees. About the NASA shuttle falling in the sea. About starvation and the food that life ain't buy.
Hey, this is Mike, Seder 42 Vinyl, and I'm here again with Roger. We're going to do another video. We're going to do amplified assignments. This is episode 5. This time we went a little bit metal. I guess we're saying metal adjacent, although I think my pick is a little bit more metal than Roger's pick for me. Today we're going to be talking about Volbeat. This is Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies. And Roger gave me the Faith No More album, Introduce Yourself. Yeah, so we're going to continue to do amplified assignments. We're having fun doing it. We're getting some views. People are watching. That's good. Mostly my friends and stuff commenting, but you know, it's been interesting to have conversations with other people about some of the music.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Okay, so my pick for Roger is Volbeat. This is Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies. This is a band from Denmark. I always like to say they're friends with King Diamond because they kind of are. You know, there's actually a song on here where King does some backing vocals or kind of a vocal guest appearance on the album. They get labeled as groove metal, which I can understand that description of them, but you know, I know that some people don't agree with that, but some people do. I think it's fine. Good band. This was actually the first album that I heard from them. I mentioned in the last video that I bought a bunch of albums from FYE when I first bought my turntable, and this was actually one of them as well. I had just heard of the band. I hadn't really been a fan of them before, but I was just picking up a lot of different stuff just to try things out, you know, and just kind of get stuff that was kind of on sale over there at the FYE. And this was one of the albums that was over there. And I started playing it and it kind of immediately hit me like it was kind of really good. It was catchy. And then I started streaming it at work and stuff. And actually a guy at work was like listening to it while I was, and he started listening to it. And a friend of mine whom I play board games with on the weekend, he's a fan of this band as well. So I think one of the hurdles for this band and one of the complaints of Volbeat is the vocals. So I think that's one thing that would be maybe a little challenging for somebody listening to this, because you know he's kind of putting on a voice a little bit or kind of an affect or whatever with his singing that could be maybe a little bit of a put off. But I enjoy it because I think it is kind of unique, especially in metal. You know, you don't really have a guy like this singing, you know, other than maybe like a Danzig type singer, you know, who sings a little bit like this guy does, I would say. But yeah, I really like this album. I think the songwriting is great. I like that the theme of the album is all about, you know, outlaws and shady ladies from the Old West. There's some songs on here about real people. Yeah, and it's a fun album too. I know quite a few people who like this album, and I wanted Roger to experience. We were going a little metal adjacent, so I figured, I know this is probably a more metal than metal adjacent. It's definitely more in the metal than non-metal, but it does have kind of a rock feel too. You know, it's not like an incredibly heavy album. So, Roger, what was your first impressions or preconceived notions when I picked this for you?
So much like when I mentioned in the Anthrax episode, there was a good stretch where I was in the car listening to Sirius XM Liquid Metal a lot. This was a band that was in the rotation, so I was familiar with them. I had to think a little bit, and I think originally they were a band that I didn't hate, but I usually turned it away. And there was one song in particular, I forget what it was, but I really hated. Like, I was like, I hate this song. And then I do remember when Room 24 came out, and I was like, well, all right, you know, and I liked it, and I didn't turn that away. And I think I heard another song maybe, and I was like, it's okay. But it really, I think it was often still turned away. I knew, you know, they were very divisive from what I've just kind of, I don't even remember where, but I know like metal fans who hate them, like really hate them. And it seems, and like, so I was kind of a little curious when you gave it to me from that regard, because I'm always just kind of want to see what's up with that. I knew what I was getting into with the vocals. I didn't really have any judgments against it. When I first heard them singing on there, I thought he sounded like Dan Swano and Nightingale. I remember thinking that, and I still think it now. I'll get to that in some song. I was like, I don't think I like this band, but you never know. I knew the song Room 24, and I thought that was a good song. So that was my preconceived notion. I gave it a listen. It took me a while to get through the first listen. I find this, I found this album really boring. And I think that's its main problem with me is, and I've probably listened to it like 10 times now. And
Oh, that's a lot.
I find it, I find it boring. Well, you know what? It's just kind of like it's background music a bunch of times when I was in the pool or something. And like I find it just very kind of bro rock. It's not very memorable to me. There's a few parts, but I would say the other big part of it, besides it being boring to me, is I don't like the theme. I don't like the theme of it at all. The Western part, a couple of the songs that I think that could be good, Black Bart for one, Doc Holliday for another, they both start off as a real heavy track. And they start like, because a lot of the songs aren't. A lot of songs are just like rockers. Those songs start off really heavy, and then like the Western gimmick comes in, and I'm just like, oh, I hate this. And it never changed, no matter how many times. I was just like, this part I don't like at all.
Feeling with bar juice, the moonshine in his hand. Hot-headed with a temperament. The speed is deadliest man with the gun. A brother came alive, I covered my dog. A front your back upon who times all the dams. Handling this house attention today. Let me introduce you to myself. Doc Holliday.
I mean, I'm not going to give this a scathing review necessarily. Like, I wouldn't say I hate this, but the more I listen to it, the more I understand the problems with his vocals, even though I didn't have a problem with it before. It varies too much, that affectation. Like, it's real strong on some songs where it's almost irritating. It's kind of lightweight in some of the songs, and I think that's the songs he sounds more like Swano. The more I listened to the vocals, I liked the vocals on it. It was just like, it didn't grow on me. The opposite. So some of the songs I would say were good songs. Here's my list. I said they're good-ish songs. I had ish after it because I do think this album's pretty boring. Pearl Heart, it just kind of starts off pretty nice. That little opening hook is nice, and it's like, okay, I like this.
Lady Pearl Angel, Lady Pearl Angel, you rise. Lady Pearl Angel, Lady Pearl Angel, you fight.
Room 24, but honestly, I like that song less now than I did when I was listening to it on Liquid Metal because really, it doesn't sound like the rest of the songs on the album at all. It sounds like a mediocre King Diamond song to me. Even the way the solo is, they wrote it for him, maybe. I felt like, and it makes it kind of stick out on the album a little bit. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, King Diamond singing is really the best part of this song. I just don't think it really goes anywhere. And it just kind of peters out. That's what I think about that. But that's on my goodish songs.
My mind is awake. I open my eyes, but it's so hard to breathe. Something is in here to silence my screams. The darkness in 24. Steal your breath away once more. It's happening again.
The other thing, this is a reason that maybe I didn't really like this that much, is that My Body, which is a cover song, I think is one of the better songs on the album. Actually, that might be my favorite song on the record, and it's the cover song.
Yeah, there is a God now, and I am falling down, close in a spiral round this town of steel. My body tells me no, but I won't quit, 'cause I want more, 'cause I want more. My body tells me no, but I won't quit, 'cause I want more, 'cause I want more.
And then Lola Montez is on my Goodish song. It sounds like a Boston song to me, that song, and that's why I kind of like it. That's when I started really realizing I didn't like his vocals that much, because at that point he sounded good. That was the medium. There was like the Swano-ish stuff, the over-affected stuff, and then that song I was like, I like these vocals, and it sounded like a Boston song, and I like Everyone Loves That First Boston record.
Up and forward slowly, and products of birds up to wild ideas, and for public morality, and cool as she was, she didn't care. See the miner throw his gold, lifting his gun, howling loud like a wolf, hell raising a full of sail, while Lauren was dancing and showing her skin. Wherever she walks, she'll be captivating under me. Don't look in her eyes, you might fall and find the love of your life in me, but she got you in her web. The love of your life, yeah.
A couple of the songs that I didn't like, what I said was like, could have been good. I was really disappointed with Black Bart, Doc Holliday because of what I said. Lonesome Rider is the worst song on the record. At some point, like I said, I listened to this like 10 times. I skipped that song like multiple
Whoa.
times.
Okay.
It just sounds like a rockabilly song, and I hate stuff like that. Like, I really do. It's not about like the other vocals. The female vocals on it are fine. Stylistically, I didn't really like it.
Rita, where have you gone? I've been missing you for far too long. I feel so blue, haven't you heard? I am the lonesome rider in the lonesome rider's call.
Reaper, where have you gone? See the lonesome rider carry on. His pain so blue, haven't you heard? He is the lonesome rider, it's the lonesome rider's call.
Just feel all the love I'm giving you. I'm back from the war, I've been missing you. Where have you gone, the baby blue? I'm here all alone, I've been bleeding too.
And then, there was songs, Cape of Our Hero, Sinner Is You, Our Loved Ones. I think those songs are okay, and those are the songs that just kind of sound like okay Nightingale songs to me. The way they're kind of paced and the way they rock. I even think if the Western gimmick wasn't there, I think I still would have found it just kind of boring. I may have given it a half a star more if it didn't have that. And I think kind of that includes the Lonesome Rider song. I kind of feel that is also part of like that fits in with the motif of the album a little bit, and the fact that I don't like that song at all, probably that has to do with each other. So if I was going to give this stars, I would give it 2. Maybe I would have gone 2.5 if I just thought it was a boring record, would have been right down in the middle. 2, like, I don't think 2 for me is like I hate it. 2 means I don't like it. And I think there's a big difference between I don't like it and I hate it. Like, I don't hate it. It was pretty inoffensive to me. If you said all their albums sound similar and this is the best one, then I don't think I'm a fan of this band, is I think what I could sum that up with. But
Yeah.
That's about all I got. Like, not too harsh. I feel it's kind of disappointing because I'm not giving it really super hot take either way. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the album is very hooky. I feel like a lot of songs on here have great choruses. That's one of the thing, like, that helped me overcome the vocals and even the theme, the country kind of stuff that they throw in there. I kind of like the idea of the way that Volbeat writes their albums. They pick a theme and they kind of write songs around that theme, and they put musical stuff in there around that theme, which is kind of cool to me. It makes each of their albums unique in a certain way. I guess if the, country theme or the, Old West theme isn't your thing, then yeah, this could be a put off for that. I would say, it's definitely more of a hard rock, heavy metal album. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
heavy metal.
Yeah, and when you told me, going back to the impressions, like right away, as soon as I saw the reveal, I knew it wasn't, but I laughed because you hinted me and you said the groove metal, and I guess I subsequently have seen that as well. But when you said that, I was like bracing myself, because to me, groove metal means like Pantera or Lamb of God, and I hate stuff like that. So I was actually pleasantly surprised, and this is probably better than any groove metal you'd give me.
I hear the groove metal in this, with some of the riffy, the riffs, some of them are a little bit bouncy, and I can hear that sometimes in some other bands that are like this. But the thing that won me over, like I said, the vocals, they weren't necessarily challenging to me, but like I said in the beginning, it's an affectation. That isn't like his natural way of singing. I believe it's almost a put on in a way, in some respect. It kind of won me over in the end, mostly because I feel like the songs are just so strong. There's a lot of great songs on here. When I listen to this album, every song that comes up, even if it starts out quote unquote boring, like you're saying, it gets some type of hook in there, some type of riff that pulls me in. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is a perfect album either. Out of all the albums I've listened to from them, this is my favorite. It's kind of funny because this was on my list for an amplified assignment, but when you said you wanted to go metal adjacent, this was one of the first albums that I thought of. But I don't know if I even was convinced, or I even thought maybe that you would like it, but in a way, kind of forcing us to listen to these albums, I'm almost hoping, almost like the Lizzie Borden, where in the end it kind of wins you over, even though it's not like an album that you would even pick up on your own. Or like you said, if you listen to a song here and there, you wouldn't explore it any further than that probably. And I think, like you said, you've heard a couple of these songs on the radio and you were just like, that was okay, but I don't want to explore it anymore.
And I guess the last thing I'll say is, I think probably the harshest review I gave of any of these episodes was a few episodes ago against Horizont. In many ways, I kind of almost prefer that to this album, even though I was kind of neutral on this, because at no point have I ever been humming any of these songs, singing any of these songs outside. I recognize them when they come on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's this song. But I think every other thing you've given me, Arion at some point, Horizont songs, like in the subsequent weeks, maybe not now, but I would catch myself singing some lines from there. This album just doesn't do it for me. I guess it just doesn't resonate with me at all. So
okay, well, I will say that I'm disappointed that you didn't like it more than you did. That's okay though, because music is subjective. But if anybody liked what you heard, I'm gonna play a lot of the songs that Roger mentioned, just clips and stuff, so you can judge for yourself if you think that Roger got it wrong. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's subjective. You're not wrong. You know that. But yeah, I think it's a really good album. All right. So Roger discussed Volbeat, Outlaw Gentlemen, and Shady Ladies. So we're going to move on to the next album, which is the amplified assignment that Roger gave me, which he's holding it up right now. Faith No More, Introduce Yourself. This album came out in 1987. It is kind of I would say, alternative metal, funk, punk, kind of a few different genre mixing, genre blending album. For the 80s, I think it's ahead of its time, but go ahead and give me a little bit of a background of this album for you and why you picked it for me.
So, for one, I would guess I just go with the history of the band. I feel right before we actually heard them, and not their history, you can look up their history. I'm not here to tell you that. But our history with them, I feel like we started hearing their name in metal magazines. Like they were one of those bands that metal bands were big fans of. We'd see them in thank you lists. There was kind of just like, who is this band? But the real thing came out, it hit, that was 1989. And I remember going to the original Record Time location and I was looking at the tapes and I saw Faith No More, not an album I had. And I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, oh, can I see that album? And he's like, you like the new album? I was like, oh yeah, it's great. It's great. He's like, this is very different. And I said, oh, it is? And he said, yeah, they had a different singer. And I was like, oh, And then I just thought about it for a second and I said, was it good? And he said, I think it's fucking amazing. And I was like, all right. So I bought it and brought it home. So that's why I first heard that album. And you know what? I did think it was amazing. And I respect Faith No More and their career a ton. Never just a band that I was really into. The Real Thing was its time. It's just never really been my thing. Though I do respect it. But this album, I loved almost from the moment I heard it. There's a lot of, funk and rap and and rock. And then it gets heavy in some parts. While that's such a big part of it, what makes this album for me is Chuck, the singer. I just think he's so charismatic, and it's just, to me, like, I hear it and it makes me smile. Chuck passed away a few years ago. I was fortunate to see him play live a few times, and just had that charisma. I've always liked this album. This is one of those ones that, however many years now, 35 years now, it gets listened to pretty regularly, at least every year, if not a few times a year. Like, I just always pull this out, and it's just, I really like it a lot. It's just really fun to me. I know it. I've given you these ones before that it's just like, am I going to vouch for its greatness? Because I know that this is definitely not an album for everybody. But for me, I really love it. And I thought, like, just looking at my list of things, and since I wanted to go metal adjacent, well, this will be fun. This will be fun to talk about, because I like talking about records that I really, really, really like a lot. And this one I really, really like a lot. When I originally picked it, I didn't think that you knew it. And then when I was listening to it, I remembered parts of it that we listened to together. And I was like, oh, he totally knows this. I'm curious what any preconceived notions you had going in, if any, because once I realized that you were familiar with it, I saw that it wasn't in your collection.
All right. So my preconceived notion, but when you mentioned you were going to give me this album and you said, you definitely know this, I remembered that you know it, like you just said. Same thing happened when I listened to it for the first time. Those parts that I think we laughed at, I remembered all those parts, and I was like, okay, yes, I remember this album. But I couldn't remember why I never picked it up, you know what I mean? Like back then, or why I never even recorded it from you, because I don't think I ever had this album, and listened to it. If I did, I didn't listen to it very often, because the songs that I remember are kind of like the hits, Introduce Yourself, We Care a Lot, and those funny parts. That was my preconceived notion, I guess. I'll start with the things that I like. The things that I like on this album is, number one, and it's something that you didn't mention, is that this is incredibly 80s. Like, it's 87, but this is taking influence, I think, from like Talking Heads, B-52s. Like, there's a lot of 80s stuff in here. The synth is very, new wave, and probably my favorite parts of the album. Jim Martin's guitar is great. Roddy Bottom's keyboards is good. Song-wise, I think, and recording-wise, a lot of people say it's an improvement from the first album. And you can hear all the elements of The Real Thing in this album. There's pieces in there that are there, especially in the song like We Care a Lot, because it really sounds like a song that could be on The Real Thing, honestly. The other thing I liked about it is there are some good melodies on this album. There are some parts that are really cool, good hooks, memorable. And I don't use this word. I don't think I have used this word in any of the albums that you've given me.
Well, here we go.
But the things that I hate about this album are the vocals.
Oh,
The vocals on this album are awful. One thing that annoyed me, no matter how good the songs are, his singing is pretty terrible. What's interesting is he sings off key all the time. And I don't know if that was a choice, like if that was a decision they made, like, hey, Chuck, do it. Yeah, we're going to do something really weird. You're not going to sing on key through the whole album. Or if he just can't sing. And I read a story today that, they saved up a bunch of money to get him singing lessons, but instead he bought a bunch of stuff for his clothes on stage instead. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know what Chuck thought or what the band thought when they had him as a singer, because he is god awful. He is awful. This album doesn't get panned, but there are two groups of people that love Chuck and people who can't stand Chuck. There are not people who are like, I can live with his vocals. The album is mediocre, because the album gets basically a 3.3 out of 5 across the board. Either people love it or they hate it. I am in the unfortunate category of not being able to get over the vocals. I just can't.
I wonder if some of that was because of the influences you said earlier, which was coming to the 80s new wave. And I wonder if they thought it was kind of like performance art, kind of, if that was the route they were going with it. And it's also interesting that your feelings towards him, and I'm not saying this is true or not, but I've seen those like people say that Mike Patton, because of his range and this and that, is one of the greatest vocalists of all time, from a scientific standpoint, which is probably utter nonsense. But it's funny that they replaced Chuck with him then, based on what your opinion.
Yeah. Well, Mike Patton, I did listen to the real thing, or at least some of it, because I was like, is my memory of Mike Patton the same? And Mike Patton, at least on the real thing, has a very high and whiny voice, but he sings in key. He sings with the song, like it's not unlistenable. So Chuck is a huge hurdle for anybody to like this album. And that's just advice for people. If you're going to listen to this album, be prepared for something that is wholly unique. And
man.
And if you can't get over that, like I could not, you're gonna be in for it's not going to be a good time. So let's get into songs though, because I think that there are some really cool stuff on this album. Faster Disco is interesting because I feel like when I play it on a loop and it goes right into the song, it feels like it's almost an epilogue to the last song, which I thought was interesting. It doesn't feel like it's a fully fleshed out song. It has this melody in it that's kind of cool, but it doesn't feel like it's a fully baked song. So it's interesting that they put that as their first song, but it's not a bad song. Chuck sings out of key throughout the whole thing, so it makes it really bad. Annie's song. The other thing that I didn't like about this album is when they tried to be funny. It was very cheesy, and it was like, it felt like teenagers, cracking jokes, but nobody else is like, guys, you're just not funny. These aren't funny things. So,
well, I was in the corner laughing.
well, Anne's song feels like that to me. It's like, oh, we're gonna write this song about our friend Anne. We're gonna say all these crazy dumb things about her. It's gonna be funny, and it's so inside that I don't even get it. I think it's silly. It has an interesting melody in there for literally like 30 seconds or less, which is okay. And it's too long of a song, actually. It's one of the longer songs, or it feels long. I didn't actually look at the time, but it goes on for too long.
It has a long outro.
Okay.
You're never gonna get it, man.
I don't get it.
I never claimed to be different. I only said I was bored, and she's tired of your uniqueness. It sends her over head first, then the rest of her follows. The breath of life, it never left her hollow. And I can't do everything she says with a smile. I can't go anywhere tonight, 'cause I'm with Annie and her and Dagnabbit Island princess, girl with the juice. Ooh, hell yeah. Oh, I see. She's brought along with her the whole uptown contingent.
Introduce Yourself is awful again. It's one of the worst songs on the album. It's so stupid. Guys, I have this idea for this funny song where we can act like we're introducing ourselves. And I'm like, no, don't do it. You're going to embarrass yourself. It's bad. Awful song. Chinese Arithmetic. My favorite part of the song is the synth. The intro, there's this awesome synth. In this album, it's very subtle, and he plays underneath a lot of stuff. And I really enjoyed a lot of the melodies that he did, just these even short, sustained notes and stuff that I thought were really cool. And Chinese Arithmetic has really good synth in that song. And it's a song that builds, and it's really cool how it builds, and then Chuck starts singing and he basically ruins the song. He kills the entire vibe of the song, because the song is like really, I'm like kind of getting into it. I'm like, I'm really digging this. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. Death March, heaviest song on the album, basically a straight up metal song almost. A really good riff in there, really good heavy guitar. Now, We Care a Lot. This is where the humor works for me. This one, I felt like they weren't trying, and even if they were trying, it just kind of worked because it was funny, like we care a lot, and they care, and basically they just like about everything, we don't pick and choose, we even care about the LA cops. So I was like, okay, you guys are being cheeky, but I get it, and that was actually fun in a silly way. So they were being fun and silly, and that song I actually enjoy. And I think Chuck, when he does, you did mention he kind of raps a little bit. When he does that, it's not too bad because he's not actually singing. He's, just kind of shouting these things, what he's saying. Some of the stuff that he is a bit shouty at times. I don't like that either. But for some reason on We Care a Lot, it works better than on pretty much every other song on the album. But I do like that song.
We care a lot.
R&R has a really good riff. Jim Martin shines on that one, and there's a really good melody to open up the song. But again, he's doing that shouty vocal thing that I don't like in the verses. Again, cool synth, cool guitar. There's a melody in there that comes in periodically that I really like, in that song, so that's good. Crab Song, again, they're being silly, they're being funny. It's kind of, the joke goes on way too long in the beginning. Funny when he's like, I was only kidding, I remember that when we were younger laughing, but now I'm just like, yeah. Now, let's get to the best song on the album, Blood.
Blood rips.
That is a great song. Chuck ruins a great song. It sucks that he did that. I really wish it was just an instrumental because there's great synths, great guitar. It's incredibly heavy. And Spirit is a good closer. It's not bad. Awful singing, of course, but it has a really good giant riff in there that's really cool. And yeah, like I said, when I did some research on it after I listened to it a bunch of times, people are very split on this album. People do love it like you and appreciate what the album is, and Chuck especially. He always comes up in the reviews. Even the people who love the album are like, you're gonna live or die by these vocals, because if you like Chuck and you like what he's doing, you're gonna be into it. Like I said, song wise, there's a lot to like here, but he sings throughout the whole thing. And like I said, he sings off key either on purpose or he just can't sing. And I don't get it. And it's just, it doesn't register with me, unfortunately, because I think there is a lot to like here, really. I think it really sucks. I'm more disappointed for the band in this album because I think this could have been an excellent non-divisive album if they had just gotten Chuck those singing lessons or whatever. I don't know. It's funny that we chose two albums with vocalists that are kind of have a put on in a way. Like, I don't know if Chuck is putting it on, but the Volbeat guy is definitely putting it on, but he's not singing out of tune. Chuck is either putting it on or this is just the way he sings, and it's a hurdle. That's not to say that this album isn't for everybody. Obviously, you love it, and I think there is an audience for this, but I really would go into this like, if you can't get over these vocals on one or two of these songs, he's all over this album. So I give this album, only because of the music, I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. And if you can get over the vocals, you're going to like this album a lot, I think. So, but for me, it's definitely not for me. I will probably not listen to this album again.
I accept your criticism. I disagree from a taste standpoint, but like, I get it. So I didn't actually think that was a strong possibility with you. I thought maybe you just wouldn't be into maybe it stylistically. I didn't think you would hate the vocals. So, but I'm also not surprised because I know a lot of people hate the vocals. So I guess I don't have much of a rebuttal. I accept your criticism.
All right, so we're going to get on and give each other new assignments, and we are going completely non-metal this time. I know my pick isn't even metal adjacent. It's not even close.
This is an album that came out in 2006. They ended up collaborating on 3 albums. This was 2 artists that came together and collaborated on an album. I was familiar with both of them in 2006 and fans of both of them. So I immediately bought it up. This is one of my all-time favorite records. This is The Ballad of the Broken Seas by Isabel Campbell and Mark Lanigan.
I am very curious. You know how I really enjoy females and bands and vocals and things like that. So I am very, very interested in this.
Isabel Campbell was in Belle and Sebastian and was on several albums of theirs, and I liked them at the time. Mark Lanigan, singer of the Screaming Trees, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. This is actually Isabel Campbell's project for the most part. Like, she wrote, produced this album, so almost like Mark was her muse almost in this album. So I really love this album. It's very soft. It's very cinematic, I feel. I really, really like it. And I don't know. I feel you could go either way on this, and I'm very interested to see which way you go on this.
Okay, so the album I'm going to give you is a 2023 release, and this is the debut studio album from Blonde Shell. Blonde Shell is an artist that I only heard of because she opened for Liz Phair when she did Exile to Guyville. She played the whole album, and Blonde Shell was her opening act. And when I went to go buy tickets, I was like, oh, who's this? Cool, like maybe I'll be interested in this. So I started streaming it. She writes a lot of songs about her past with addiction and her codependent relationships and stuff like that she had. So there's a lot of personal stuff on here, which I really enjoyed reading the lyrics. And there's a lot of really good emotional, sections of building, and then just like these lyrics that just hit really hard. And I think the first side of the album is really strong. The second side is good, but I just think the first side is stronger. So I'm really curious if it appeals to you, which side you like more. She plays with a band. It's not necessarily like acoustic or soft. A lot of good hooks on there. So I'm really curious if you'll dig it. It's definitely not metal, not even close. It's basically indie rock.
Spoiler alert on my preconceived notions. I have no idea what this is.
Those are our de-amplified assignments, I guess. And maybe we'll go back to metal after this, but this will be a good experiment. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like the video. Yeah, commenting, liking, and all that stuff helps maybe other people find it. And if you found it interesting, let us know. Thank you. See you later.